I was, doing what I thought I wanted to do, which was be a college professor. I did all this stuff to do it. Never actually got that job because I didn't get into the PhD program I want to get into. And in 2012, my mom ended up having a really bad stroke. And it made me look at a lot of different things I was doing in my life and realizing like, hey, do I want to do this? Is this where I want to be? And, when I asked myself that question, I quit my job on a whim. I went full time into network marketing, which I didn't know what that was.
Welcome to the Gentleman Success, Happiness, and Fulfillment Talk podcast, where we bring to you the most successful, happy, fulfilled gentlemen from around the world who have been able to conquer themselves, their life, their marriage, and their businesses. You will be learning from four-dimensional gentlemen who have cracked the code to the science of having it all. The question is, how can married entrepreneurs with kids become gentlemen, achieve true freedom, and build a successful, happy, and fulfilled life, marriage, and business? This show will give you the answer for that. My name is Alex Ramirez, and I'm your host, and you're welcome to the Gentleman Success, Happiness, Fulfillment Talk podcast. Hello, beautiful people. Welcome to another episode of the Gentleman Success, Happiness, and Fulfillment Talk podcast. As always, I have an incredible and jacked gentleman today that I'm very excited to get to talk to, learn from, and connect with. He actually was the one who inspired me to start my podcast a couple of months ago, and I'm excited to have him. But before I introduce him to you, though, I just want to ask everyone for a favor. I want to ask you to, if you get something out of this episode, if you get some type of value, if you get some type of insight, a skill, information, or the inspiration to go out and take action to keep on moving forward towards your goals, I want to ask you to please share this episode with 10 friends. Share it on social media, share it on Facebook, on Instagram, share the link, share it with 10 people, since this is how we grow. This is how we're able to share our message and motivate, inspire, and bless other men and women out there to level up and step into their God-given potential. So today I have Jeremy Slate, and he asked the question to himself for a long time, which was, what does it mean to be world class, right? And he always asked that, and that's why he created his top 100 podcast called Create Your Own Life, which has been downloaded like millions of times. And he, like in his podcast, he studies high performers, and he discovered his own purpose to help magnify, people's impact through podcasting as well, right? He's a husband, father, entrepreneur, and I'm excited to have you, Jeremy. Thank you very much for being here, bro, and you are welcome.
Hey, thank you so much for having me, man. I'm stoked to be here hanging out, and I appreciate the kudos too. It's kind of cool when without even knowing it, you're able to help somebody get started, man. So I'm kind of appreciative of that.
Yeah, man, awesome. So, man, the first thing that I do with my guest is I tell them to walk the audience, right, through your entrepreneurial journey in 75 seconds or less.
75. What is that? Like a minute and 15?
Like a minute and 30 seconds, I think.
Okay. I had to do the math there. I'm not quite good at math, so I was trying to figure that out.
Yeah, me neither.
Yeah, like for me, interestingly enough, I didn't think I'd be here, right? Like, so for me, my master's is in ancient history. I was, doing what I thought I wanted to do, which was be a college professor. I did all this stuff to do it. Never actually got that job because I didn't get into the PhD program I want to get into. And in 2012, my mom ended up having a really bad stroke. And it made me look at a lot of different things I was doing in my life and realizing like, hey, do I want to do this? Is this where I want to be? And, when I asked myself that question, I quit my job on a whim. I went full time into network marketing, which I didn't know what that was. So I thought I was going to be like a millionaire and like, flying in G5s and all this kind of stuff. And that didn't happen, but it was the first thing to get me started. I went from there to selling life insurance. I even went to China at one point, learned how to source products and sell them on Amazon. And all these things just really didn't work out for me. So I started a podcast in 2015 called the Create Your Own Life Show. It took off. We had 10,000 listens in our first month. And people started asking me for help. It led to the first agency we started, which was Slate Media Productions. We did Done For You podcasts. Didn't make very much money, and it didn't go very long as our clients were kind of like, hey, I just want to get on their podcast. So we brought in another partner, started a company called Get Featured Media, which did very well for its first 9 months until everybody butted heads. And in 2017, it became Command Your Brand, which is our current company. And we have 15 on our team, and we're trying to make a big impact, man.
Cool. So now I remember why I resonated with you, man. And it's because when I became an entrepreneur 3 years ago, my first gig was life insurance. I went into network marketing as well. And then, I tried like drop shipping in Amazon and then failed and then failed for like a year trying to help men become modern gentlemen. And I was like, I remember when I was watching your training, I was like, I like this guy, right? Podcast helped him and like podcast helped me. And it did, bro. It did. So thanks, man. Like it's crazy, right? Like you didn't even know.
I had no idea, but I think it's kind of interesting though, because you also don't know who's watching. You don't know who needs to see you keep going so that they keep going, like things like that. It's just, it's really easy to give up, but I think at certain times as well, you don't know who's watching and you don't know who that matters for too,
And that's a great lesson because like someone is watching, right? Like someone needs you. Like I needed you, man. And you were there in the time that I needed you the most, which inspired me to take action. I took action and now I'm here having a conversation with you just 8 months after that.
Damn.
Right. So yeah, so that's crazy. So man, cool. So tell me a little bit about Command Your Brand. Like yeah. So what is it that you do there?
So we help to magnify the voice of founders with the people that need to hear them. And the vehicle we use to do that are podcasts, but I feel like it's really right now, there's no better way to tell your story than in the podcast world. Because you get long form conversations you can't get anywhere else. So we really help founders to learn how to tell a better story, and we help them to tell it in the right places in the right way, man. So that's what we do at Command Your Brand. We're continually working on improving it every single year, and just doing a better job at that.
Cool. All right. So tell a better story. So through my journey, man, I've just realized how powerful stories are. I actually have a mentor. His name is Peter Sage. And like it's impossible to talk to this guy without hearing a story from him, right? Like this guy just uses stories to explain very complex spiritual concepts. And concepts that you wouldn't be able to understand, but he is really good at making you understand them because of stories, right? Because he's such a good storyteller. And that I know that that's one of the things that you help entrepreneurs with, tell a story. So I would definitely, like, selfishly be looking for whatever it is that you got to say. So how can someone tell a super powerful story, man, that gets people to, I don't know, to like move, to buy, to be influenced, to be inspired, right? Like, yeah, like what are some keys for telling stories?
Well, I think the big one, first of all, is putting your own needs second, sometimes even third or fourth. Like, I think a lot of times when people come on a podcast, they have the idea of like what they want to sell or what they want to happen at the end of it. But it's really about showing up in such a way that you can help and service someone, because this is a really educationally based medium. So you want to show up in a way that, whether somebody buys from you or not, whether they work with you or not, whether they do something with you after that show or not, that they're going to get a ton of value out of you. And when you can lead that way, you're going to find that people actually do want to continue that relationship. So I think that viewpoint is really, really important. The other thing as well is when you're answering questions, you use stories to answer those questions, right? Like, I remember a time in my life when I was, blah, blah, blah. Like, things like that are really, really important and valuable, because the thing you have to remember, and there's a Maya Angelou quote, and I feel like I'm going to totally butcher this, but it's the idea that people aren't going to remember what you said, but they're going to remember how you made them feel. And it's the same thing. Stories really carry humanity in them, right? They carry feelings in them. They carry what it is to be human. And I think when you can connect with that, that's how you can make people make transformation, is by really having them connect with the story. So to me, it's put the needs of the show first, put the needs of the host first, and really look how you can connect with people on that level and kind of bring them to the place you're in, right? I can think of times that I was listening to podcasts, and there's times in my life that, like, there's certain things I needed to hear. I needed to hear it from that person in that way. And when you're really putting that in perspective, man, that's how you really make an impact.
Okay. Awesome, man. Yeah, it makes sense. Awesome. So for the second, so you put your needs basically last, right?
Yeah.
Like, think about the people who are going to be listening to it. Think about the host. and then like use stories to answer questions. Do you have like a framework to tell stories, like a framework that works really, that you've just seen that works really well?
This is going to sound kind of crazy. I had like frameworks for everything when we
Mm-hmm.
started, and we got rid of all the frameworks because we found that it's really telling people how to really communicate. Like that's what it's really all about. Do you know what I mean? Like I
Yeah,
think people are like, okay, so I get into this part of my story, and then I get to this part of my story, and
and
okay,
you get in your head.
here comes the big part. And it's like the thing you have to realize is just being there and communicating. So what we really work with people on, frankly, is breaking a lot of those frameworks they've been taught, because frameworks, like, you're communicating through a framework rather than communicating with a person. Do you get what I'm saying? Like
Yeah.
it's something you're like, okay, so this is my framework. Alex is on the other side of my framework. And now I'm talking to Alex through this framework rather than like, hey, Alex is here and I'm talking to Alex and I'm having a real conversation with Alex. And what we tell our clients is, be there, be willing to communicate, be willing to offer value, but also like make a friend. I've found that like I get speaking gigs from podcasts. I get opportunities from podcasts, and it's because I just show up willing to make a friend. And I think when you do that and you're just willing to communicate and you're not, you know, this framework of, okay, so the story looks like this, and now here's the turning point, and here's where I get in and make the pitch. Like we worked on a lot of that stuff in the beginning, man, but it puts people so in their head and so stuck in the details rather than just being there and communicating. So that's frankly the thing we try to help people with. We try to break all those frameworks they're stuck in.
Yeah, yeah. So you try to help them become an effective communicator, right?
Really,
Uh,
right. That's what it's all about, man.
not like a framework driven person, because then if you put, like, if you teach someone a framework, or if you teach someone some tactic or strategy to have a conversation, if they're put in an environment in which, like, that tactic, strategy, or framework will not quite like work, they'll be
Mm-hmm.
like, they'll be freaking out and they won't know
Well,
what
they
to
get
do.
spun and they don't have a good conversation then. You know what I mean? Like, the question they don't expect was coming and then they don't know what to do because like you have to like look at it from the perspective of somebody interviewing. Like an interviewer, your first question doesn't really matter that much, right? Like because it's just setting up the conversation.
Yeah.
It's the follow-up question to that really matters, right? Because you ask a question, somebody gives you some data, you're able to you have some data, so now you actually know what you're working with, and now you can ask more questions based on that. And I think when you get too much into like the minutia of that, you're not ready for the really, really good parts that could be coming, if that makes sense.
hmm Yeah, it totally makes sense, man. That's exactly why I asked that 75-second introduction, and now we can be like human beings, right? And just talk.
Yeah. Yeah. Cause I don't, and that's why I'm not a big fan of like podcasts that have like, lots and lots of like pre-prepared questions or like, like they ask everybody the same questions and stuff like that. Like, and I'll be honest with you, man, like, you experienced my content a little bit. I used to do that.
Hmm.
But the thing I found that the conversations got better, the experiences got better when I dropped a lot of that stuff and was just really willing to communicate.
Exactly. So, man, you've had over 1,000 conversations, right?
Hmm.
With like people like Grant Cardone, Russell Brunson, Tom Villieu,
Yeah.
and like very high level 7, 8, and even 9-figure entrepreneurs. You've had like 1,000 conversations on your podcast. So I've had like 142. So, like, selfishly, and also, yeah, like, this will be of huge value to anyone listening, because speaking to people is what life and business is all about. So what would be some, like, I don't know, some advice, man, like looking back to, your 142 40-second interview to like now over 1,000, like what are some things that you've learned, like that you think would be of big that would have a huge impact on my journey, because you're way ahead of me, and that's exactly the point of why I wanted to talk to you, right?
Well, I'll tell you, it's the main reason I actually wrote this. My book that
Extraordinary.
just, Unremarkable to Extraordinary, actually just came out 2 days ago. Because I found that like with having all those conversations, it's on Amazon, Barnes and Noble, anywhere you can think of. But like I found like a lot of the conversations I was having, man, like the same things came up again and again and again, right? Like it's very, very interesting. And one of those things was that people that are, they're extraordinary, they're world class, like they look at adversity in a way that other people don't, right? They're willing to take this, take it as an opportunity to grow, take it as an opportunity to become something better on the other side. It's really very transformative for them. Whereas if you look at other people, they see it and they run the opposite direction. Even others just try to act like it's not there. But when somebody is truly extraordinary, they see it they do give themselves a moment to reflect and be like, whoa, bro, that's a little tough. We're going to sit here and think about it for a second. But then they're willing to go through that process. And I think that's really, really important. Like you look at somebody like, like Tom Brady. Do you follow football at all or?
No, I don't have a
Okay.
TV.
Okay. So Tom Brady, for those people that don't know, he is still playing. He's 44, going to be 45 in August. He is the greatest single player statistically to ever play in the National Football League. 7 Super Bowl championships. I think he's got like 5 MVPs, and he was one of the last players drafted. Barely played in high school, barely played in college, only played in the NFL because the quarterback in front of him got hurt.
Damn.
So he was somebody that, he actually got better because of all the adversity he had to deal with, right? When you're the number one pick or when you're the best, you've been told all your life you're the best. And that's actually a huge like disservice to you because you've never really had to work for it. You've had a lot of natural ability and a lot of natural talent, but that's only going to take you so far. It's the same thing like a lot of baseball pitchers, right? You get guys in their mid 20s and they could throw 98 miles an hour, 100 miles an hour, and they throw a flat fastball. It doesn't move. As they get older, they can't throw as hard and they actually have to learn how to pitch, right? They have to learn how to throw a cutter. They have to learn how to move things around. So at the same time, they've figured out how to channel those things. So I think that transformative experience is a really, really big deal. And that's where you see greatness come from, is that transformation. So I think that's one really big aspect, is adversity and what people do with it, as well as like self-education. So many people I've talked to, like, sure, they have degrees and they have all these different things. I have a master's degree I don't use. Some of them have no college at all. Some of them have barely high school, whatever it is. But the thing I've found is they're very motivated by how they educate themselves. They're always educating themselves. They're taking responsibility for that. And they're not depending on, others to do that. Because frankly, I think our school system's really broken. It's not about like people being able to do something. It's about people being able to pass a test that they're not going to remember in 5 years anyway. So they're really big on self-education. That's a big deal for them. Another thing that is huge is how they lead. Something I learned from David Petraeus. He's the former CIA director, and he's also a 4-star general. And one of the things I learned from him was the importance of being able to tailor your leadership style to the person you're leading, right? Because, in the military, a lot of times, not only do you have to lead people, but you have to deal with a lot of egos. And those people that are trying to lead people from the perspective of, I'm the freaking man and you should follow me and this is why, they actually get a lot of blowback from other people because they're not realizing, okay, well, this person sees the world this way and this person sees the world this way and this person sees the world this way. And if I can just be part of that vision, I can actually lead them. So when you can kind of put a lot of these things together, man, like you can truly become extraordinary. And there's definitely more points, but if I had to say it, those are the main things I feel like I've picked up from guests again and again and again.
That's awesome, bro. That was really valuable for me. I hope it was valuable for anyone listening as well. So then, what makes an entrepreneur or a person or anyone, right? Like extraordinary is their ability to handle uncertainty, right? Adversity, and to be able to go through it with like a positive attitude. You like take a step back and be like, holy shit, like this is tough. This is going to be tough.
Yeah.
But then their ability
like shit happens, man. Like it does. But if you look at it and you say like, poor me, and like, why is this always happening to me? Like, like if you become a victim, man, like you're not going to get anything out of that. Like it's the same thing with, this world where everybody gets a trophy, which is the stupidest thing I've ever heard of. Like there's winners and there's losers in life. And hopefully when you lose, you learn how to not lose again, right? Like there's benefit to losing if you know how to use it.
Yeah. And when you get faced with one of those situations, it might be tough, but then you're willing to go through it and learn, which is
right
what life is all about, right? Like life is a gym. Imagine if people went to the gym, bro, and they're like, oh, there's too much weight on the bar. I don't want to lift it, right? Like that's how
I get excited about that though, man. I don't know about you. Like I'll be honest with you. I do show off a little bit every now and then, but it's fun. I enjoy it.
Yeah. So that's how life is, right? You get some weight on the bar, you get some tough things thrown at you, you get some lessons, and like you gotta be willing to like lift them and go through them, right?
Yeah. So, but even to that as well, because like you look at that and a lot of people walk into the gym and they say, oh my gosh, Alex, you're benching 315, man. Like I could never do that.
Do you bench 315?
I bench. Well, now I bench 315. I benched in the 4s at one point, but I lost a lot of weight.
Damn, that's awesome. I'm sorry,
but like, no, that's okay. But I interrupted you, so that's how we got here. But like, you look at that and people say, well, how did you get here? And they think there's like some magical, like, this supplement or this workout plan or whatever.
No.
And it's like 5 pounds a week of strength every week for 10 years. You'll get there. And I think that's the thing as well, is those things take such a long time that most people aren't willing to stick with it.
Yeah, exactly. And then the other thing, right? So you gotta, you mentioned how tailoring your leadership style to the person that you're leading. That sounds exhausting, man. So, I mean, I'm just trying to process it and like think about, okay, that's good advice. I'm not like rejecting it, but how would you be able to do that? And I'm just guessing like by being vulnerable, right? No, by being open, by being like empathetic. It's not about changing yourself, but about.
I don't know if it's as much about being vulnerable.
Okay.
I think it's more about, kind of swallowing your pride and your ego a little bit. I think that's part of it, because I think you see a lot of people and they lead from the perspective of their own importance, right? Like, I'm this general, or I'm this admiral, or look at all I've achieved. You should follow me. Well, that doesn't mean anybody's going to follow you. I think when you look at it, people want somebody that's going to work right alongside them. They want somebody that's going to, show them that they've been there, but at the same time, understand where they're at in their journey. You know what I mean?
Okay.
Like they can remember, okay, like, they've been there, right? So like when they're leading others, they can think of, well, shoot, man, I remember doing that. And I actually ran into this. So they know how to lead people based on life experience. That's really the perspective it comes from. It doesn't mean like you have to be somebody different for every person you're talking to.
Okay.
But they can kind of act on their own life experience, put themselves in a viewpoint of another, and kind of realize how things are going for them and how to communicate to them, right?
Okay. Awesome. So
it's wild, man. The more you talk to me, the more you're going to realize like so much of it is about viewpoints and what you say and do.
Yeah. So let's see. So awesome, man. So you've dropped a lot of, like wisdom already in the last couple of minutes. So all the way from like make a friend, right? Like,
yeah.
Like put your needs last, right? Be able to handle uncertainty, adversity. You got to be able to tailor your leadership style to different people differently. I'm curious, man. You have 2 daughters, right? How do you implement this at home as a husband and father?
It's more from the perspective of, so number one, like my daughters are young. So like my
daughter is about to be 3 in June 30th.
Okay. So I have a 3-year-old and a 1 almost 2-year-old. So it's like what you do with them is a little bit different, right? Like it's not going to be the same as what you do with a 5 or 6-year-old. So at that age, it starts with like here's the thing, right? So the let's say I'm sweeping the kitchen. This is something that's actually happened. I was sweeping the kitchen at one point, right?
Mm-hmm.
My 1-year-old comes in with her little baby mop and starts helping me. Now, you know how kids are. She's not helping at all. Like she's getting in the way. But a lot of parents would look at that and they'd be like, get out of the way. I'm doing this, blah, blah, blah. She's making more of a mess, whatever. Oh, Emerson, you're doing such a good job. Thank you for helping daddy. Like you're letting her feel like she's helping, right? You're giving her self-worth by her participation and her ability to, add to the family. She's a little kid. She can only do so much. Now, the 3-year-old's a little bit different, right? Because it's the same perspective, but she's older. So every morning she gets her shoes on and she goes out to the barn with me and she brings her basket and she picks up the eggs and she helps me feed the chickens and handle the ducks and handle the pig and all that kind of stuff. It's allowing them to contribute, right? Because you look at, how a lot of kids are raised. They're raised that they're not asked to work. They're not asked to be part of and participate in their family. So you're making criminals, right? Criminals are people that can't exchange with others. And when they do exchange, they have to take it from others because they don't feel like they can exchange. So even when they're little, you have to allow kids to be able to exchange, whether it's, it's not money when they're little, right? But it's their effort and their ability, and they feel like they're contributing. But if you take away that ability to contribute, number one, they're not going to want to try to contribute anymore. And number two, you make somebody into a criminal by not allowing them to communicate or to contribute.
Damn, man. That's awesome. Like that.
And I'm not saying like I'm father of the year or anything, man. Like I'm doing the best I can with what I'm given.
Yeah, that's great. Like I'm trying to do the best as I can with what I'm given. Actually, so this past weekend I went to a mastermind event.
Yeah.
That I was invited to speak on. That I was invited to speak for. I'm not sure how you say that, but that opportunity came because of the podcast, right? And and it was hosted by this 43-year-old multimillionaire, this 37-year-old multimillionaire, and then his 42-year-old wife. And like I just hung out with them like the entire weekend, man. Like I literally was their little kid. I'm 21, right? And I was like their kid, and they could literally be my parents. And they were like, I was asking so many questions, and just they were giving me so much advice. I even cried a couple of times because of what you're saying, like because they were giving me validation, they were giving me self-worth, they were giving me, they were like allowing me to contribute, right? Like I went to speak there, and like I got everything that I've been craving for my entire life. My mother had me at 15. She did the best she can. My father wasn't with me, so I didn't have parents.
Yeah.
Right. And like I'm just so grateful to hear you like give this advice, and I'm just so grateful to get the opportunity to actually implement it. And I feel so grateful that other people are going to be able to hear this out, and I hope that they actually take it, because like what you said, it's I believe what it's all about. I believe that life is about purpose, growth, and contribution, right?
Yeah.
So like every single person has a purpose, and the way to find it, if you feel like you don't have one, is through growth and contribution, which is what you said, right? You give your kids the opportunity to grow, to contribute, right? You give them self-worth. You tell them that they're good enough. You validate them. You give them
because
confidence.
they want to, but a lot of parents stop their kids from doing that. You know what I mean? Like, because they're like, oh, you're getting in the way. You're making this take longer. Okay, well, what are you going to do when they're 15 and they don't want to help you? You know what I mean?
Yeah. And then you just embrace their natural tendency to contribute.
Yeah.
Instead of cutting it.
Because every like, if you look at the core of every person, right? Like people are naturally good. There's probably less than 20% of the people in this world that are actually bad people. Like they do exist. There's some out there, but people are naturally good. And what people naturally want to do is help. And when people don't feel like they can help, what happens is they also feel like they can't be helped, right? Like you have to be able to help to feel like you can be helped.
Yeah.
And that's when they start doing other things to handle that, whether it's drugs or alcohol or sex or whatever it is, because they can't be helped. So they need to handle that. And so when you look at it, when you take away someone's ability to help at the core of every being, that's what they want to do, right? So you're actually taking away the reason a lot of people are living if you're not letting them help.
Yeah. Yeah, that's really good. So yeah, and I really like when you, like, if you don't allow your kids to work, like if you don't like cultivate, work in your family, then you literally raise kids who think that they don't have to work, who they think they don't have to exchange anything, and they grow up unable to exchange.
Exactly.
Turns them into criminals. That's crazy.
Yeah, because if they can't exchange, then they still need to get things to survive, right? They got to get them from somewhere, and they're not able to exchange and produce, right? They need to take.
Damn, that's crazy, man.
Because here, look at it this way, like, my parents, they're good people. They weren't college educated or anything else. My dad was he was a factory worker that one day worked his way up to the president of that company just through hard work and time. As a kid, I had chores every single day that I was expected to do. My dad worked on a farm on the weekends. I was expected to be there, weeding and tilling the beans and everything else. Like those responsibilities were given me at 11 years old. I was expected to get a paper route because at 11 years old, you were finally allowed to get one. So like those things, I think, frankly, have made me more responsible as an adult, and have also made me realize the value of work.
Yeah. Yeah. So man, another, yeah. And like, like I talk about 4 freedoms: physical freedom, emotional freedom, sentimental freedom, financial freedom. Most people out there are concerned with the financial freedom. That's the one that like gets them the most, right? The financial freedom. But I think that one thing that a lot of people don't realize is that they don't have business or financial problems. They have personal problems reflecting in their business, right? And a huge part of those personal problems that can reflect in your business are like with your family, right? So I'm gonna ask something else. And it's, I have a 3-year-old daughter. You do as well, and then you have a younger one. And I just want to make sure that I'm very intentional, man, with how I raise her. Because you probably heard this, you probably know or have heard of like from 0 to 10, or from 0 to 6, or from 0 to 7. Like those are the years that like kids literally get programmed, and then they go on the rest of their life just projecting onto the world the program that they were given when they were little, right?
Yep.
So do you have any advice, tips? I don't know what question to ask, but do you have any advice for that? Like, how are you like being intentional about it? Hey, sorry for the interruption. Real quick, do you want to know how I've been using my podcast to build a multi-million dollar network with over 100 7, 8, and 9-figure entrepreneurs, reach hundreds of my ideal clients with my message, coaching, service, and podcast, get invited to speak on 4 stages in the last 2 months alone, throw my own events, and have over 100 successful entrepreneurs being willing to speak at my events, become a millionaire in 1 year, get mentored by multimillionaires, and achieve goals that I thought were going to take me 10 years to achieve in 1 year, and ultimately get unstuck and make quantum leaps of progress in my business and life with less than 1 hour of work just by being myself. If you answered yes to any of those, I just want to invite you to a free training showing you how I've been able to build a multi-million dollar network that is helping me achieve bigger income goals faster with only 1 hour of speaking and just being myself. To be honest, I thought I was going to be a multi-millionaire, speak on stages, throw my own events, and live a successful, happy, and fulfilled life of growth and impact in 10 years from now. That seemed so far away, but my podcast has been able to help me do that in less than 6 months. I'm actually doing all of that this year at the age of 21 with my podcast. I'm reaching thousands of people with my message, my service, my podcast, my coaching. I've gotten booked to speak on 4 stages in the last 2 months. And on these stages, I'm going to be getting in front of hundreds of my ideal clients, making roughly around 15 to 30K plus per event. Not only that, I have a network of over 100 high-level, multi-million dollar entrepreneurs who have all agreed to speak at my events. Getting clients is a problem of the past. I've gotten the opportunities to learn from billionaires, and I'm collapsing decades of time, and I'm literally achieving what I thought was going to take me 10 years to achieve in 1 year. All of this because I use podcasting as a networking tool, and I leveraged a rare concept called the cloak track. And I want the exact same thing for you. Just imagine where you could be in 1 year from now if you get this free training right now. That is why I'm inviting you to this training. On this short training, you're going to learn how a small group of purpose-driven entrepreneurs, authors, coaches, course creators, and speakers have combined podcasting with this rare concept called the cloak track to build a multi-million dollar network, reach thousands of their ideal clients with their message, books, courses, coaching, make an extra $118,800, get booked on 10 stages, and build a successful network of entrepreneurs who speak on their stage, all of this in under 6 months. I'm going to walk you through the 4 steps to make this work. Step number 1, alignment. Getting clear on who you want to be, what you want to do, your goals, your purpose, and aligning all of this with building your podcast and your ideal podcast guest. Step number 2, leveraging the cloak track to find your ideal podcast guest and never running out of them. Step number 3, leveraging the cloak track to close an interview with anyone, no matter how rich, famous, or out of your league they may seem. And step number 4, the content machine. The content machine is the key to tapping into other people's audiences. And I'm going to show you all of those 4 steps. The link to access this free training is in the description of this video. Click on it and go watch this training right now so that you can learn how you can too build a multi-million dollar network that helps you achieve bigger goals faster and with less effort. Note, this training is only available to 18 people, so act right now, and I hope you enjoy the rest of this episode. Bye-bye.
I don't know that I'm being intentional. I'm just trying to,
Love?
realize how love, but also realize how I'm communicating as well, because kids pick up how you communicate. And I think that's something you have to be careful of. Responsibilities, the big thing that as well, like, kind of guiding them in that way. And at the same time, trying to make time for family. Like, we don't do it every night, but we try to most nights have dinner together. Like, those things are important because you're putting that structure there that like, as you said, these kids are going to deal with. So I think when you look at it that way too, I work from home, and something we've tried to get better with is, like how we handle our kids of like, okay, daddy's working now or mommy's working now or whatever it may be as well, because you don't want them to be made wrong for you working, right? So you have to like really think twice about how you communicate. Like, daddy has to do has to do this so you can eat. Like, wow, that's kind of mean.
Yeah.
But it's like, it's from the perspective of, daddy's working right now. I'll be done in like an hour, and then we'll go out. Like, I try to take some breaks to do stuff with them during the day. You know what I mean? Like, okay, let's just run out to the barn, or let's go check out the ducks, or let's go to the playground, whatever it is, because like I think it's hard that way. But also something we've done as well is I travel a lot for work, and we go to cool locations. I was just in Playa del Carmen, um, 3 weeks ago, and that was super cool.
Cool.
And because I do a lot of speaking engagements, and like people usually like pay for me to go to different places, like come speak to their groups. And something we do is we bring our kids on all those because we want them to get excited about when mommy and daddy go on a work trip. Like my 3-year-old keeps begging me to take her back to Mexico. So like when you do stuff like that, I think it's to really involve your family as much as possible. I think it kind of also changes perspective on that stuff.
That's really awesome, man. That's exciting. That feels good because now your kids will grow up having like thinking or having a relationship or like thinking that work is good. Like work is exciting.
Yeah,
They'll
it's
look forward to
rewarding.
work. Huh?
It's rewarding.
Exactly. Yeah. Okay, cool. I like that, man. Yeah. I haven't been involving my family in my work enough. Like my daughter knows that I work and that I do stuff here in my office, but she
Yeah.
doesn't know exactly what I do. She doesn't know that I talk to amazing people every single day. Um,
It's a
so
double-edged sword though, man, because then my 3-year-old sees a Zoom call and she thinks she's supposed to be on it, but it is what it is.
yeah, yeah, for sure. So man, you've dropped a lot of wisdom, right? You talked a little bit about command your brand and what you
Yeah.
got going on. So what is it that what is it that is like that you're working after? Like what is it that how can I ask this? I can't find my words. What is it that you're going after? Yeah, like what are some of the things that you're trying to build moving forward?
So right now, as I mentioned, the book came out on Tuesday, Unremarkable to Extraordinary. So that's really been our biggest focus right now, and we're kind of like just in the midst of everything. Like it's been book launch week, and with the book launch party and signing and everything on Sunday. And the thing that's kind of interesting, I think that even shows our perspective too. Like it's a family event. We've got a bounce house. We got all this cool stuff because we want it to be something like it's not daddy's event. It's daddy and the family's event. You know what I mean? So
Nice.
it's like, so we've tried to like also do that and that type of thing. So, that's kind of where my head's at the moment. It's just kind of working on all that stuff. We're trying to hit a bestseller list if we can, and make a big impact that way. And we've been also working on growing the agency, hiring more people. But that's really where my head's been at recently, man. It's hard to think outside of that because we've been so kind of engrossed in it recently.
Cool. So man, I'm just curious, how did your podcast or did it help? But my question is, well, how did it or did your podcast help with like your book that you wrote?
So everything from the book actually comes from the podcast, right? Like the intention of when I started the podcast, the intention was to one day write a book, but I always told myself like I wasn't ready, or like, you know, as I mentioned, I have a master's degree. So it's like I'm an academic writer. Like I can't write things people can understand and things like that. So it definitely
Stories.
changed it changed the approach, right? It changed the approach. I learned to write stories better. So for me, it's based off of the core things that I've learned from people from the podcast, like, how to channel adversity the right way, how to self-educate, how to lead the right way, how to actually not follow your passion, but find your passion, right? Because finding your passion implies that you're actually having to work, right? I think people like want their passion to find them, like, but finding your passion implies you have to do something. You got to do a lot of things you don't like in order to find something you do like. And I think that's really important. So there's all of these concepts I've tried to put together in such a way that people can take this and they can, make a change in themselves and kind of move forward. Not selling a program or anything with it, but really for me, it's just been I want to, kind of advance this out in the world. And it all comes from what I've learned from the podcast.
Cool. And it's like this network that you have of over 1,000 people.
Mm-hmm.
Did it help like promoting the book?
That's been one of the biggest things is we did kind of our main chapters. There was 11 different people we featured in the chapters from the thousands we've spoken to.
Mm-hmm.
So that was kind of one group of promo people. And then we did something else called Extraordinary Stories. They weren't the main stories, but they're things that kind of support the main points in the chapters. So that was another like 30 people we could involve in that as well. And when we first started the book, we did kind of a pre-launch campaign where we pre-sold like 250 books before the book was even written. And that was also pushed a lot by like people who've had the podcast as well. So we've tried to involve as many people as possible in the process.
Nice, man. So yeah, congrats on the book, bro. So and we are almost out of time, and I asked 5 questions to finish the interview. But before I jump into those 5 questions, I have one last thing that I want to ask you, and is just to like, get you to, I don't know, maybe like validate. I don't know what word I would use, but to get you to talk about like the power of having a podcast. So the way that I explain it is that you build a network, right? And through so there's 5 currencies in the world. And a currency is just like a meeting of exchange. Like you exchange time for money, money for time, money for knowledge, right? You just exchange. And there's 5 currencies. And that's network. You can exchange, like network, right? There's money, right? Obviously, you can exchange money. Attention. Now we live in an age in which you exchange attention, actually.
Right.
Knowledge, right? We're in the knowledge economy. So yeah. And time, you exchange time for money or time for whatever it is that you want. So those are the 5 currencies of the world. And the way that I explain the impact of podcasting is that through using podcasting as a networking tool that helps you connect to high level people and building a high level network, you can make money, right? You can gain attention. I just got to get invited to speak on stage. You get invited to speak often. You can gain knowledge. I've been connecting with people who are decades ahead of me, and I've been gaining a lot of knowledge, and that is helping me collapse time. And that's the way that I explain it. So what is your take on that? And like, how would you explain the impact that podcasting has had on your life and the impact that you've seen podcasting has had on other people's lives? It's a big question.
It's totally changed my life though, man. Like I look at it and I was somebody that had failed at all these different things, and podcasting was a huge opportunity for me because number one, it enhanced my knowledge, right? I could learn a lot more from all these people and get access to people I wouldn't typically have access to. I get to actually network with a lot of these people. And as I've been to some really cool places because of the conversations I've had in the podcast and spoken in those places, all over South America, all over the US, all over Europe. So like all those opportunities have come from the podcast. So for me, it's like totally changed my life. And it's also changed like my friends group. It's changed, my business. It's like, I didn't have a business when I started this. Like it's changed my life, and it's become one of the biggest cornerstones of my life. And I think too many times people look at it from the perspective of, all right, I'm going to start a podcast. It's going to get really popular. I'm going to sell ads and I'm going to make money that way. But like, you're really short-sighted if you're viewing it that way.
Exactly.
For me, it's a really incredible networking tool. It's a really incredible learning tool because I'm learning every single day. I'm talking to these people. And at the same time, like it helped me to create a business, for others, maybe it's supporting a business you already have. But for me, that was the way it kind of worked.
Awesome. Yeah. And one of the things that I say is like, yeah, the downloads and views are good, right? Like when I talk with a client, they're like, yeah, I want to get to this amount of downloads by this amount of time. And then you're like, well, yeah, hold on. Like you're missing the picture, like, right? You're missing like the end, right? Which is, awesome. So man, the first question is, if you could give your 20-year-old self some advice, what would that be?
I would tell myself to be more patient, man, because I was always unhappy with the position I was in. But when I look at it, every one of those positions I was in, I had to learn something from. So I would tell myself to be a little more patient.
Yeah. And like being unhappy with the position that you're in, that's
because you're always like kind of gauging against like where you want to be, right? Like you're like, I'm here, but I want to be here and I'm not here yet. And you don't realize like, well, here is going to take 10 years or it's going to take 15 years, or it's take 5 years, whatever it may be. So it's like, you have to kind of be happy with the process sometimes. And
exactly,
that's what I would tell myself.
And that's a huge one for entrepreneurs, right? Like they think that they'll be happy when they arrive, but no, like
you're never going to arrive.
Exactly.
Like, you know what I mean? Like you're always constantly working towards it, if that makes sense. Like if you're really into improving yourself and growing, and it never ends, right? Like that you don't get there. Success isn't a place you arrive. It's a journey,
Exactly. So that's why I wanted to make sure to not like breeze over it, right? Because like being happy with where you are, right? Being content without complacency will save you a lot of suffering, right? Like, just accept where you are and just like not be complacent with that and keep on going, right? It's a process. It's a journey. So awesome, bro. Thanks for coming up with that. The next question is mindset. What is one mindset shift that you've had that you think is contributing to your success?
Mindset shift. Frankly, like I've always been somebody that's been willing to work hard, but hard work is only going to get you so far. Like it's important and it's vital, right? Like I'm not going to say, take it easy, but at the same time, when I learned how to work smarter and not just try and, run into the wall harder,
do everything yourself.
Yeah, like that was kind of a big thing for me. Like I've always worked hard, and I thought like to be successful, I just had to continue. I had to work harder, if that makes sense. But at the same time, you got to throw a little bit of intelligence in there, man, and work a little bit smarter as well.
Yeah. So let's not breeze over this as well, right? Because I'm going through this journey of not working, like not trying to work harder. And now I actually get to have a team, right? Like I have like 15 people, and like I do, like we get so much work done. And what I do is like nothing compared to the work that we get done as a team, right?
Right.
And like I used to think, for some reason, I don't know where this came from. For some reason, I used to think that you have to do everything yourself. And there's probably someone out there.
I've thought that too, man. Like, because I think sometimes you think like, oh, well, at least I know it's going to be done. You know what I mean? And I think when you look at that perspective, you're going to get nothing done.
Exactly. Right. So there you go. Awesome. Thanks, man. Mindset map. So right now you mentioned something about, what did you say about your passion, like not finding it, but like
not following it, but finding it, right? Like, because I think so many times people are like, oh, I'm just going to follow my passion and I'll never work a day in my life. But when you look at it, right, to actually find your passion, you got to do a lot of things you don't like, man. You're going to have to clean some toilets at some point. You're going to have to clean some bathrooms. You're going to have to sweep some floors. You're going to have to shovel some poop. Whatever it is, you're going to have to do a lot of things you don't like to do to find what you actually love. And I think that's the point, is it's an active process, not a passive process. Finding your passion doesn't happen to you. It's something you do.
Cool. So then map. So what would you say to people who may lack or need clarity in their life? Do you have any advice for them?
Just do more stuff. Like frankly, you know what I mean? Like do more stuff. Like I think people wait for clarity rather than like trying something. Like,
Yeah.
Go try out a career for a little bit. Go try out a job for a little bit. Get an internship. Get an apprenticeship. Like do something for a little bit, because like when you're looking at it, like let's say you're an apprentice and you work under a plumber. Okay. I think that's unionized, but like anyway, you work under a plumber. You're going to learn how to be a better plumber, or you're also going to learn you don't want to be a plumber, right? There's discernment's part of that. So like, do some stuff. That would be the best advice I would give.
So like, it's like, if you want to know which fruit is your favorite fruit, then you gotta go out and try fruits, right?
Yeah.
You can
it's funny watching my toddler do that too, because she'll be like, oh, I hate this one. She'll spit it out. It's the same way with jobs, man. Same way with jobs. I think we focus too much on finding the right one right away, because we put so much attention on going to the right school and getting the right education. And that stuff doesn't matter that much. It really doesn't. There's a few things it does really matter in, like if you're a lawyer or a doctor or whatever, like, it's probably pretty necessary. But like, there's a lot of careers that life experience, I think, is a better teacher than going to school.
But yet, that's what we're taught, right? We're taught our whole lives that we gotta pick perfect from the first try, right? And then and then we get stuck, and then we live a life of unhappiness and unfulfillment and lack of success. So yeah.
And then they'll sell you a medical solution for that too,
Yeah. So,
oh, sorry, Alex, you're depressed. You should take this now. Okay, cool.
Yeah, that's crazy, man. That's fucking crazy. Mindset map motion. So what is one habit that you have that you think is contributing to your success?
Number one, without fail, is fitness. First thing I do every single day.
Yeah, I can tell, bro.
I don't, I can't move the weights I could 10 years ago, but I'll tell you, man, I still hit it hard every single day. And I think that's been a big part of it. Because if my body's not right, my head's not right. And that affects everything I do in my day.
What do you mean you can't lift the weights that you could have 10 years ago, though?
Well, because my goals have changed, right? Like, you know what I mean? I was more than a little into fitness, like way too into it. Like I brought a cooler everywhere with me. It was kind of bad for like going on dates. I was doing 6,000 calories a day at my most, and I was weighed 215, and I was 8% body fat, and
that's crazy,
I pull an army tank and all that kind of stuff. I have a video of me pulling an army tank, but like I look at it now, like, I'm a little bit more lax with what I eat. I eat probably 2,500 calories a day. So it's just like how I handle my body has changed. So like I can't physically do those things, but at the same time, my life is better. I fit in nicer clothes, like stuff like that,
Yeah. Awesome. Yeah. So
like you ever try wearing, you should try wearing a suit if you're shaped like a bowling ball, man. Like it's not, you don't look good in it.
Yeah, for sure. And that's really valuable for me, because that puts into perspective, right? I mean, it's good, right? Everyone goes through that journey of like pushing really hard and wanting to be as jacked as you can. But then there'll come a time in which you're like, oh, you know what? I'm not in that season anymore. And then you just got to let it go.
Yeah.
Cool. Mindset map, motion, measure. So what do you think about measuring and tracking, man?
Back to fitness, man. I have a notebook, and my notebooks usually last me 2 years. I track everything. Was it a whole rep? Was it a half rep? How many reps was it? How was I feeling when I did that rep? Because
Cool.
because once again, the way you advance is by incremental change, right? Like it's
Yeah.
not these giant mega leaps, it's incremental change. And I've taken that perspective into a lot of other things. Like in our business, we manage everything by statistics. I always know what's happening. So we measure a lot, man, because if you're not measuring it, you can't do anything about it.
Awesome. So, bro, mindset map, motion, measure, money, right? Like that's what everyone's looking for. So if you want that, that's why I ask these questions at the end of
Yeah.
every single interview, because like all you need to do is like literally go to the end and you'll have a crash course of how to be successful, happy, and fulfilled. So, Jeremy, thank you very much for being here, man. I've really enjoyed this episode. So if people want to know more about you and about like your podcast, how to start a podcast, how to like, scale your brand, how to like reach more people. They just want to know more about you. Where would be the best place to find you?
So I'm Jeremy Ryan Slate on all platforms. My website's jeremyryanslate.com. As I mentioned, my new book, Unremarkable to Extraordinary, just came out on Tuesday. So if they want to go grab that, that's over at getextraordinarybook.com. When they head over there, order and come back with their order number, we're going to give them our free audio program called 30 Days of Extraordinary, as well as first access to the audiobook when it comes out in September. So that's getextraordinarybook.com.
Awesome, bro. Thank you very much, man. And I'll see you later. Okay.
Hey, Alex, thank you so much for having me, man.
Bye-bye. Thank you for watching the Gentleman's Success, Happiness, and Fulfillment Talk podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, share it with one friend, leave us a comment, and let us know. 99% of people never leave a review or comment, but we love and are very thankful with the 1% of you who do. If there's something or someone you want to see on this podcast, send me a message on Instagram at Alex_Ramirez1020 and let me know. As a thank you for that, I have an amazing surprise for each and every one of you who does take the time to leave us a comment or review on YouTube or one of the major podcasting platforms